Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Khoi. I'm the moderator of the VinAI seminar series. Today, I very happy to be the moderator of the talk, very interesting talk named Annotation-Efficient Learning for Object Discovery and Detection, given by Dr. Hiva. Dr. Hiva is an AI research scientist at Fair Labs, Meta. He obtained his PhD in computer science from Ecole Normale Supérieure in 2022. His thesis was prepared in India, Willow team, and Value AI under the supervision of John Pons, India, and Patrick Perez, Value AI. Prior to PhD, he obtained the engineer's degrees in math and computer science from Ecole Polytechnic in 2017 and the math, vision, machine learning master degrees of Ecole Normale Supérieure Paris Saclay in 2018. His research interests revolve around learning problems with little or no supervision, including unsupervised object discovery, weakly supervised object detection, active learning, and more recently, self-supervised learning. Now, the stage is yours, Dr. Hiba. Yeah, you can start.
Thanks, Khoi, for a very nice introduction, and thank you for the invitation to VinAI seminar. I'm trying to share my screen. Okay, where? Sorry. Stop. No. Okay. Okay, I hope you see my screen well. Is it okay?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So, hello everyone. Today I will discuss annotation-efficient learning methods for object discovery and detection. And this is the topic that I worked on during my PhD. And if time permits, at the end, I will also give a brief introduction to DinoV2, the most recent work of my team at Meta. In computer vision, object detection is an important and fundamental task. Its goal is to build models called object detectors that are able to labelize and localize objects in images. For example, given the image on the left with 1 giraffe and 4 goats, we want the detectors to output 5 axis-aligned rectangular bounding boxes around this object, 1 for the giraffe and 4 for the goats. In practice, object detectors are also important modules in many intelligent systems. For example, in autonomous driving, where the vehicles need to recognize the objects on the road and their location to make decisions. Or in robotics, where the robots need to know the objects in its environment to navigate in it. Or for digital contents provider like Meta, object detectors are also used to analyze the visual content on its platform. Normally, to obtain an object detector, the most common pipeline is called fully supervised object detection. In this pipeline, we first collect images, then we ask human annotators to manually draw boxes around each object in the images. Then we would train a model, typically a neural network, to map the images to their corresponding boxes. And at the end, we obtain a detector that we can apply on new images. And this pipeline works well in practice with high performance, but it has a limitation, which is a very high annotation cost. For example, on Coco, it takes around half a minute to draw just 1 box around 1 object. So if the image has multiple objects, it can take minutes to annotate just 1 image. And let's imagine about datasets of millions of images that would take a ton of time and money just for the annotation. And to remedy this issue, many alternatives to fully supervised object detection have been proposed in the literature. In semi-supervised object detection, not all images are annotated, just a portion of them. And during the training, we leverage both annotated and unannotated images to train the detector. In weakly-supervised object detection, all images are annotated, but not with bounding boxes. but instead they are labeled with tags showing the presence of classes in the images. And the training will use only these tags to train the detector. In active learning, we gradually select images to be manually annotated in multiple cycles. And in each cycle, we will use the current detector to find new images that are most useful to improving the current detector so as to maximize the detection performance with respect to a fixed annotation cost budget. And finally, unsupervised object discovery can be seen as an unsupervised variant of object detection that does not require annotation at all. Instead, we leverage the similarity between images to find common objects in them and link images that contain similar objects together. In this talk, I will first discuss works on unsupervised object discovery. Then I will introduce a method that combines weakly supervised and active learning for object detection that offers a good trade-off between annotation cost and performance. So let's dive into unsupervised object discovery. Unsupervised object discovery, or UOD, is the task that aims to extract useful information about objects and images like their categories and location without using any kind of supervision. And this task has several variants in the literature. Early works under 2000 focus on grouping images that are similar to each other together, while another more recent variant focused on learning object-centric representation of images. In my work, we focus on another variant that seeks to link images that contain similar objects together and find the common objects in them. This is an important problem because, as I was saying, annotation is expensive to acquire and not always available for training models. And also, a successful method to unsupervised object discovery could have many applications. For example, we can use such a method to generate a form of free but noisy annotation for other tasks like weakly-supervised object detection and localization. Or we can also use such a method to help human annotators in large labeling campaigns. For example, for labeling budding box for object detection, instead of asking human annotators to draw boxes around each object, we can use your UOD method to generate some candidates, and we ask human annotator to select among those. So that would reduce the time and cost for annotation. But unsupervised object discovery, or UOD, is also a challenging problem due to the lack of supervision. And this is particularly difficult for natural in the wild images where occlusion and background clutter occur frequently. And also different from the case of supervised learning where objects are well defined by samples in the training set. Here we don't know what objects are. And there are a lot of ambiguities between object parts and objects, or group of objects and individual objects. And in three of my works, we define objects explicitly as visual patterns that appear frequently in the image collection. So if visual patterns that appear in multiple images, we consider that an object, and otherwise it's not an object. In another work, we do not explicitly define objects, but we rely instead on the power of self-supervised features to learn object concepts, and we simply use these features to localize objects in images. I have contributed to 4 works on this topic. They are OSD, standing for Object and Structure Discovery, ROSD, standing for Regularized OSD, LOT, standing for Large-Scale Unsupervised Object Discovery, and LOST, standing for Localized Object with Self-Supervised Transformer. But in this talk, I will give only details on only 3 works, OSD, LOT, and LOST, and only give a brief description of ROSD. So let's first discuss OSD. This work was published at CVPR 2019. OSD is built on the previous work of Cho and collaborator, in which they suppose that for any image collection, there is an underlying graph structure where images are nodes, and there is an edge between images if they contain similar objects. An example of the graph is shown on the right here, where we see that images of people are connected together, images of cats are connected together, but images that do not contain similar objects are not connected. And with this graph structure, Cho and collaborators observed that if we know for each image their neighbors, then we can roughly localize the objects in them by compute the correspondences between the image and its neighbors. And the inverse is also true, that if we know roughly the location of objects in each image, then we can define a measure of similarity based on these objects and find neighbors for each image. So they propose to alternate between these two steps, finding image neighbors and localized objects. And they show that after repeating these two steps several times, they can find good location of objects in images and find good neighbors for images. One limitation of this work is that it is a heuristic algorithm, and it doesn't optimize any objective function. So we don't know if we keep iterating the process, we can obtain better or worse result. So the motivation of OSD is to reformulate unsupervised object discovery as a proper optimization problem, and we will find image neighbors and objects in each image simultaneously by solving this problem. And we follow the setup of Cho and collaborators. We suppose that for each image, there is at the beginning a set of region proposals that are generated by off-the-shelf methods. Some examples are shown here on the left. The region proposals are shown in red. And there are typically between 1,000 and 2,000 region proposals per image. And we cast localizing object as selecting the best regions amongst those. And also following Cho, we focus on OSD on finding a single object per image. In our optimization formulation, we suppose that we have an image collection with n images and p region proposals per image. We also suppose that between every pair of regions in different images, there is a non-negative score that shows their similarity and objectness. And we denote by Sij the P by P matrix that contains the scores between pair regions in images I and J. And these scores are computed with a probabilistic Hopf-matching algorithm that presented in the work of Cho and collaborator, and they are computed before the optimization. We also denote by E the adjacency matrix of the graph, which is binary. And Eij is 1 if J is a neighbor of I in the graph and 0 otherwise. We also denote by Xi the binary vectors with P elements that represent the selected regions in image I. And so if region K in image I is selected, then Xik is 1 and it is 0 otherwise. We propose to phi X and E to maximize the total similarity between regions in neighboring images in the graph. So the math form of the objective function is shown here, where we have Eij here to guarantee that we consider only images that are neighbors in the graph. And the other term, we'll see that if we expand it, it is actually the sum of scores between regions that are selected in images I and J. We also impose some constraint because otherwise maximizing this objective function is trivial. We can just assign all of them into one. The constraints are on the number of neighbors of each image, which is tau, and the number of selected regions in each image, which is new. And in our implementation, even though we select only one object, we allow new to be higher to ease the optimization. Intuitively, with this formulation, we need to maximize the objective function. We need to find X and E such that the selected regions in each image actually correspond to objects because those regions have higher score. And we also need that the selected regions in neighboring images to be similar to each other, because they are taken into account in the objective function. And at first sight, this is a very hard problem to solve, because it's a discrete optimization problem. And but fortunately, the form of this function is known in the literature. It is a pseudo-Boolean supermodular function that, even though we cannot solve exactly, there are algorithms that we can use to approximate a solution. And next, I will give a sketch of the solution. The first thing to notice is that this objective function, when we expand it, it is actually a sum of products of binary variables. And because the product of binary variables is actually the minimum amongst them, and mean is a concave function. So the whole objective function can be rewritten as a concave function. And if we relax also the binary condition on x and e, so that now they can have values in 0, 1, we have a convex optimization problem. And we can write the Lagrangian as follows, where lambda I and mu I are dual parameters. And we can also define a dual problem accordingly. We will solve the dual problem with a projected gradient in which the iteration t involves finding the xt and et maximizer of the Lagrangian while fixing the dual parameter lambda t and mu t. And this can be shown to be equivalent to solving a max flow problem exactly on a bipartite graph. And at the end of the projected gradient descent, we can find an approximate solution to the primal problem, which is the problem that we want to solve, by taking the average of the maximizer xt, et during the gradient descent. But this solution is not a discrete solution, and it does not necessarily satisfy the initial constraints. So we need to round it, and we also propose to further optimize the objective function with a greedy block coordinate ascent. And actually, in our implementation, the rounding step and the greedy block coordinate ascent use the same procedure, in which we will maximize the objective function by update x and e alternatively. And when we update x, we update xi sequentially while keeping e fixed. And when we update e, we update ei in parallel while keeping x fixed. And there is a difference between the two steps, because the update of xi depends on the values of xj, so we cannot do it in parallel. And because solving the continuous version of the problem is quite expensive, because it involves solving max flow problem in large bipartite graph, we also try a fast alternative where in which we initialize the x and e to have entries all equal to 1, and we simply use the rounding and greedy block coordinate ascent procedure to optimize the objective function. And as I was mentioning, our goal is to get one object, one region at the end, but we allow new to be higher than 1, so we need to a post-processing step to narrow down the new return regions into only one object. So with this formulation, we conducted experiments on 3 quite small datasets, but those are the datasets that are used in show and collaborators. And these datasets are OD with 300 images, and VOC on with 3,500 images, and VOC 6x2 with 500 images. The metric used is colloc, which is the stands for correct the percentage of correctly localized images. And in our context, an image is correctly localized with one of the ground truth at 0.5. And from the table, we can see that our optimization formulation obtains significantly better results than show and collaborators. And when we switch from randomized prime region proposals to selective search, both the performance of both method drops, but our drops is much smaller than that of show and collaborators. So So that shows that our method is more robust than the previous heuristic algorithm. I show here some clusters of objects that are obtained from the graph at the end of our optimization. And we see that some cluster clearly correspond to a certain object category, like airplane, horse, bicycle, but the other, well, we see that there are multiple categories in them. So I have shown that with the proper optimization formulation, we obtain a better performance for unsupervised object discovery than Joe and collaborators. Our method is also more robust to the change of region proposal, but OSD has still has several limitations. The first is that it is only able to discover one object per image. And this is because even though we are allowed to select new regions in the optimization, the new regions often concentrate only in one object that I show in the figure here, where the red boxes are selected regions and white boxes are ground truth. And to overcome this limitation in a follow-up work, ROSD, which was published at ECC 2020, we propose a new type of region proposals that are generated from CNN features. And these proposals have a very nice group property that we use as additional constraint to regularize our formulation, hence the name regularized OSD. And with this constraint, we can diversify the selected regions by our optimization formulation, and we are able to enable multi-object discovery. Another limitation of OSD is that it's slow because the continuous optimization involves solving max flow problem on large biopsy graphs. And even though our fast alternative without the continuous optimization, it is still slow and restricted to datasets of 1,000 of images. And in this case, a common solution is to use, to scale up unsupervised object discovery is to use large cluster of machine and perform the computation in parallel. But it's not possible in OSD because, as I was showing, the update of X with the block coordinate ascent is inherently sequential. In the next work, LOT, which was published at NeurIPS 2021, I will show that with the change of formulation, we can scale up unsupervised object discovery to very large data set of millions of images. The idea behind this change of formulation is the observation that in our work we define objects as visual patterns that appear frequently in the image collection, and that is a parallel to well-connected nodes in graphs. And to see this analogy, we consider now the graph of regions and not the graph of images, where regions are nodes, and between every pair of regions there is a weighted edge with the weight that show their similarity and objectness. So an example of the graph is shown here on the slide, where here the edge is thicker if the weight is higher. And by our definition, objects are visual patterns and regions that are similar to other regions in other images. It means that they have many high weighted edges to other regions in the graph. Well, in other words, they are well-connected nodes in graphs. And to find well-connected nodes in graphs, there are many algorithms in the literature that we can use, and they are all highly efficient. Therefore, highly efficient distributed solutions. So we can use them with a large cluster of machine to scale up unsupervised object discovery to millions of images. Our pipeline is as follows. Like in OSD, we begin with a set of images without any annotation. And for each image, we have a set of region proposals. Then we will build a graph of regions as described previously. Then we will use a ranking method, methods that are often used to find well-connected nodes in the graph to give each region proposal a score between 0 and 1, and then we go back to the image level in each image, we will sort the regions according to their scores and take the top regions and return them as objects. We consider several ranking formulations in our work, and all of them receive as input a symmetric weight matrix WV, and output the importance score for each node or each regions. And in our implementation, we build the symmetric weight matrix WV block by block. Each block contains score between regions in a pair of images. So here, Sij will contain the scores between regions in images I and J. And actually, this matrix is identical to the matrix that we consider in OSD. The first formulation that we consider is a quadratic optimization formulation, in which we denote by yi the importance of node I in the graph, and by y the vector that aggregates on yi. We also define the importance of an edge as its weighted by the importance of its extremities. So the importance of Sij is yi, wij, yj, and we propose to maximize the total edge importance in the graph. And intuitively, by doing so, we will encourage, this will encourage giving higher importance to nodes that are well-connected nodes in the graph. And the solution to this problem is actually the eigenvector associated to the largest eigenvalue of the matrix WV. The second formulation that we consider is page rank, in which the node importance is given by the largest eigenvector of the page rank matrix, which is a linear combination between a normalized version of WV and another term controlled by a vector U that we call personalized vector. And this vector is called so because we can inject prior information into it to influence the solution of page rank. For example, we know beforehand that some nodes are already important. We can put higher weight for these nodes in vector U than other nodes. And that's exactly what we propose to do in our proposed hybrid formulation lot. In this formulation, we first run the quadratic formulation to obtain a solution. Then we will use this solution to build the personalized vector U. The idea is that nodes with higher score in the solution of Q should be reliable, and they should be important. And we consider that a prior knowledge, and we will give to these nodes higher weights in U than other nodes. And then we will use this personalized vector U to build the PageRank matrix P and run PageRank to obtain the final solution. And as we can see, all the three formulations that I've just discussed are eigenvector problems. So their solution is the eigenvector problem of a certain matrix. And so they can be solved efficiently with power iteration method. This method is also can be done in a distributed manner. So we can use large cluster machine to run on very large data set. And we conducted experiment to test our method onto a large data set. The first is COCO with 120,000 images. The second is open images with 1.7 million images. And apart from the colloq metric that I discussed previously, here for the multi-object discovery setting, we consider the object discovery average precision, which is akin to the average precision metric used in object detection, but it is adapted to our use case. So from the table, the text is that LOT obtains, LOT outperforms the previous method, sometimes by a significant margin, especially in the multi-object setting, compared to ROSD, which is the best performing methods before LOT. LOT was able to run on open images in 4 days with a large cluster machine instead of 6 weeks for ROSD. And we also combine LOT with self-supervised features, and this combination use state-of-the-art performance for single object discovery on open images dataset, as we can see here. So I have showed that with a change of formulation for unsupervised object discovery in log, we are able to perform the task on a very large data set of millions of images. But the issue with LOT is that it is still expensive because in LOT, we still define objects as visual patterns that appear frequently in the image collection. So to find these, we need to consider the pairwise similarity of a large amount of region proposals in those images. And that is very expensive. So in the next work, Lost, I will show that by using the power of self-supervised features, we can find object location without the need to explicitly define what objects are. Sorry. And this work was published at BMVC 2021. In Lost, we used features from Dino, a vision transformer that is trained in a self-supervised fashion without supervision. And the authors of Dino show that after training, the features of Dino seems to learn the layout of images. For example, here in this figure, the figure right after each picture is the attention map obtained from the last layer of Dino. And we see that the features are not only able to distinguish different objects, but also different parts of an object. So we we consider that the features of Dino have already learned the concepts of objects, so we don't need to define objects, and we only use the features to localize these objects in images. And a loss is a very simple procedure that uses Dino features to find a single object per image in 3 steps. And in the first step, we find an image patch that is likely to belong to an object in the image. And in this picture, the patch is shown in red, and we call this patch a seed. In the second step, we will build an affinity map that shows how similar other patches in the images are to the seed, and it is computed as the sign of the cosine similarity between features representing the seed and other image patches. And intuitively, in this affinity map, patches that are connected to the seed and have a positive correlation to the seed should belong to the same object as the seed. So with this, in step 3, we simply take the binding box, the tight binding box around the connected component that contains the seed in the affinity map as the return object. And because the second and the third steps are quite trivial, I will next only discuss the first step. To find the seed of an image, we first pass the image through Dino to obtain the features for its patches. And we will next define a measure of degree for each patch in the image. It is the number of other patches that positively correlate to the seed. And when we visualize the degree on images, we observe that patches in the foreground have a significantly lower degree than patches in the background. And an explanation is that Dino features discriminates very well foreground and background, so it maps foregrounds into a corner in the embedding space and backgrounds into another corner. And because features in one corner correlate very, very well with each other, but not to the features in the other corner. And also, we tend to have less foreground in the background, so the degrees of patches in the foreground is smaller than the degree of patches in the background. And with this observation, we simply, to find the seed, we simply take the patch with the lowest degree, and the seeds are shown in red in this figure. One problem when we use only one seed in step 2 and 3 to find object is that the results that we get are usually boxes around object parts instead of instead of entire objects. And this is a classic issue in unsupervised object discovery. But it can be resolved with a procedure called seed expansion, which is akin to query expansion in image retrieval. And in this procedure, instead of using only one seed, we will use multiple seeds, and we will use other patches that correlate positively to the initial seed, and we also consider them seeds. And in the second step, when we compute the affinity map, we combine the affinity map computed with differences together. And finally, we see that with this procedure, we are able to localize entire objects instead of only object parts. As we can see here, the regions in yellow are regions obtained with only one seed, and the purple ones are obtained with multiple seeds. And we show that with this simple procedure, loss is able to outperform previous work with significant margins. And this again shows the importance of good features in computer vision. But we can do more than localizing only one object per image. We propose to use the output of loss to train an object detector in a class-aware or class-agnostic way. In the class-agnostic fashion, we consider that there is only two object class, objects and non-objects, and we consider the outputs of loss at instances of object class. And after training the detector, our detector can discover more than one object per image, as we can see here. And when we compute the colloq in the single object discovery, it also pushed the colloq score by 7 points. In the class-aware fashion, we use k-mean to divide the output of loss into multiple clusters, and we use the cluster ID at the pseudo labels to train the detector. And in evaluation, we will use a Hungarian matching algorithm to match the cluster ID to the actual class in the test set. And we show the result on a VOC 27 here. And we compare our class-aware detector with some weakly-supervised detectors. And it's as expected, our detector will perform worse than weakly-supervised detectors. But compared to, for example, WSDDN, the gap is not that big, and the results of our class-aware detector is not bad at all. Especially on some classes like aeroplane, bird, cat, and horse, our detector actually outperformed the weakly-supervised detectors. But on some other classes like bottle, chair, and plane, our detector fails. And this is because loss is unable to find instances of the class in the first place. So as a quick summary for unsupervised discovery, I've shown that unsupervised discovery can be formulated as different graph-based optimization problem, or it can also be solved with simple seed growing procedure using self-supervised transformer features. And with this line of work, I push the limit of unsupervised discovery from discovering a single object per image to discovering multiple objects, and from being applicable on small datasets of thousands of images to being able to run on very large datasets of millions of images. Unsupervised learning is attractive and important because it allows to leverage a large amount of raw data at no annotation cost. But usually, as we can see, the performance of unsupervised method is lags quite far behind that of supervised method. But the inverse is true for a fully supervised method because they have high performance, but also high annotation cost. And in the next work, Active Learning Strategies for Weakly-Supervised Object Detection, which was published at ECSV last year, I'll show a method for object detection that offers a good compromise between object detection performance and annotation cost. Weakly-supervised object detection is an alternative to fully-supervised object detection that use only image tags instead of bounding boxes for training the detector. And this variant is much cheaper than the fully supervised one because annotating images with text take much less time. For example, on Coco, it takes half a minute to draw one box, but it takes only 1 second to annotate one image with respect to one class. And with this advantage, this problem has attracted a lot of attention recently, and many methods have been proposed to gradually improve its performance. But there is still a significant performance gap between weakly supervised and fully supervised object detectors. For example, on Coco dataset, CASD, one of the state-of-the-art methods on weakly supervised object detection, obtained only 12.8 AP point, while fast RCNN, which is a method quite a fully supervised object detector, which is quite dated as per the current standard, obtains 18.9 AP points. And this is because weakly supervised object detectors have no access to information about object location during training. And they are usually confused about object extent. For example, they tend to return object parts instead of entire objects, like in the left figure, or they tend to group nearby objects together, like in the right figure. And in our work, we want to remedy this issue, and we propose to improve the performance of weakly supervised object detectors with a few fully annotated images. And furthermore, we propose to select images to be annotated with active learning strategies to maximize the detection performance with respect to a fixed annotation cost budget. And our pipeline is as follows. We begin with the normal weakly supervised object detection setting where all images are annotated with text showing the class of objects in them. Then we train a weakly supervised object detector. Next, we will use the detector to select images in the training set that are more useful to improving the current detector, and we send these images to human annotators for drawing writing boxes where objects in them. Then we will use the newly fully annotated images with the old images with text to fine-tune the detector. And then again, we use the detector to select new images and so on. We repeat this process several times to improve gradually the detection performance of the detector. But one question may naturally arise in this scenario is whether active learning really beneficial here, because it is a known fact in active learning that the random strategy that involves selecting images uniformly at random performs quite well compared to active learning strategy. So we tested that out on VOC07 and Coco dataset. In this figure, the x-axis show the number of images that are fully annotated, and the y-axis show performance. And each curve with one color show the performance of one active learning strategy. And we see that on Coco, random strategy is the best performing method, while on VOC, it is the second best performing. So it's from these results, it's not clear at all active learning can help here. But we think that this is because the existing active learning strategy in the literature are not designed specifically for this task, which is a new task that we propose. So we also propose a new active learning strategy that designed specifically for our pipeline and that targets the failures of weakly supervised object detector. The idea is simple, that we'll find images where the weakly supervised object detector fails, and we will select these images to send to human annotators. But what is not trivial is how to find these images, because we have no access to ground truth annotation with boxes. And in our experiment, when we visualize the predictions of the weakly supervised object detectors, we observe that when it is confused about object location, it tends to produce multiple predictions over one object, like in the first and the third image here. So we propose to use this as an indication of the model's failure. And concretely, we define pairs of predictions of the detector that one is contained in the other as box-in-box predictions or bit pairs. And we use the presence of these pairs as an indicator of the model's failure. So we'll find images that contain these pairs, and we'll select them for annotation. But in practice, it's possible that the number of images that contain these pairs is higher than the number of images that we want to select. Then in this case, we use k-mean plus initialization to select a diverse set of images among the candidates to send to human annotators. And with our active learning strategy, BIF, we show that BIF obtains the best performance on both datasets, and it is shown in cyan color here. And when we compare BIF to the random strategy, we see that BIF requires only half the number of fully annotated images to obtain the same level of performance. And when we compare to the fully supervised fast or CNN, we see that BIF only need 1% of the training set to be fully annotated to obtain 91% of the performance of fast or CNN. So this shows that BIFs offer a good trade-off between annotation cost and detection performance than both weakly and fully supervised detection. So yeah, with BIF, I have shown that I have presented an active learning strategy and a pipeline to improve the performance of weakly supervised detectors. And I showed that BIF is better than other existing active learning strategies, and our pipeline offers a good trade-off between detection performance and annotation cost. Going forward, there are some directions that I think worth to explore, both on the UOD front and active learning front. On the UOD part, I think it's important to discover and to use cues from other modalities for unsupervised discovery, like motions in video. It has been done in a few works before, but it is worth to explore more. The combination of UOD and self-supervised feature learning is also interesting, because I think UOD can provide object priors that enrich the features learned by self-supervised learning method. And last but not least, in the investigation into the use of UOD outputs as pseudo-labels for the tasks like weakly-supervised detection or localization should be investigated. On the active learning part, apart from immediate improvements like improving architecture for BIF, I think it's interesting to explore active learning at no initial annotation cost. In a common active learning setup, we always suppose that there are an important amount of fully annotated samples at the beginning to initiate the learning process. In BIF, we have already departed from this setting where we only require weak annotations at the beginning. But I think it's interesting to go to the extremes where no annotation is required at all at the beginning. And one way to do this is to use self-supervised features to generate pseudo-labels and use deep pseudo-labels to initiate the learning process. An example for object detection is that we can use the class-aware object detector in loss to initiate the learning process. And for this purpose, we actually need powerful self-supervised features that can provide high-quality pseudo-labels to initiate the learning process. I don't know if I still have some time.
Yeah, you can have 2 or 3 more minutes.
Yeah, okay. So with this perspective, after I joined Meta, I have mainly worked on self-supervised feature learning. And recently, my team released V2, a family of models that produce high-quality features that work on various downstream tasks. And you can show here that V2 in blue outperforms, or at least on par with other weakly supervised methods like CLIP or other SSL baseline. And the main idea behind V2 is scaling existing SSL method with larger model and larger curated dataset. And it is based on Dino and iBot, which are 2 existing methods on self-supervised feature learning. But it proposed several technical improvements to improve the feature
discriminativeness by adding Collier laws, which encourage the features to spread uniformly on the hypersphere. It also uses synchron knob centering and separate tests for Dino and iBot for better training stability. It adds flash attention, nested tensor, stochastic depth, and fully sharded parallel to reduce training time and memory. And for better inference efficiency, we also use model distillation to distill our large model into smaller ones so that our models can be easily accessible just on one laptop. And another axis of InnoV2 is we stress the importance of large created datasets, and we build our own dataset by using several seed datasets on the literature, and we retrieve images on the internet that are similar to images in this seed dataset to form our dataset of 142 million images. And in our experiment, when we compare our dataset to uncurated data, we see that curated dataset, even though automatic, gives significant boost in downstream tasks than over the uncurated data. And our code is open source and models are accessible from PyTorch with only one line of code. So this marks the end of my presentation. You can have more details on this work on my personal page or this project page. But thank you for the attention.
Yeah, thank you so much for your very interesting talk, especially on the unsupervised discovery object. Yeah. So, any question from the audience? Any question? So I would go first for the question about the last one. Can you go back to the slide of the last?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. The question is, can I, to find the seed for the last one is kind of hard, right? Right now, here you use some heuristic like the number of connected component to the current pixel. Is it as an indicator for this one is a foreground?
Yes.
So can I use some technique just like CAM, the classification map to as the initial map and use this technique to find a box?
Yes, I think probably the most important detail in Lost is is finding the seed. And in Lost, we only present one search method to find seed. But if you have other methods that can find a path that is likely to belong to an object, yes, sure, then you can use that as seed and run the step 2 and 3 to find the boxes. But yeah, in our experiment, we haven't tried any other techniques for finding the seed. So it's really interesting. I'm really curious to know if there are other methods that works better.
Thank you. Any question from the audience?
Hello, I have a question.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your impressive presentation. So I'm very interested in the open world object detection problem. And mostly I have to deal with many small objects and some no-name objects. So my question is, how is it in your work? Is there any way to incorporate the size of the objects into the detection problems?
Are you talking about this, for example, or other work?
Yeah, I mean in your work in general, like Lost or Lot or any other works that you are developing.
In my work, I have also found difficult to find small objects, and I think that's a no problem in object detection, and probably it's more difficult in the open world setting. Yeah, well, I think that there's some methods to remedy this issue, like training in multiple resolution and also testing on multiple resolution, so that small objects can become a bit larger. But in general, I don't know if there's a perfect solution to this. I know that there are methods like finding objects, small objects in pizza, for example. They generate artificially new training data for these small objects by adding the objects into new background. So I think that's something you can think of if you want to try to improve the performance on small objects or in rare classes.
Yes, so multi-resolution and synthetic data, right?
Sorry?
Multi-resolution and synthetic data. So
yeah,
that can be too.
Yeah, apparently the synthetic data is quite effective, I think. And I know that there's one paper work on that was on the PISA 10. They used that approach and it improves significantly the performance.
Yes, I see. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yeah, I'll be happy to answer if you have other questions.
Okay, can you hear me? So I have a question. So like, there's introductions of the SAM model, segment anything model.
Yes.
So in your opinion, what's the role of unsupervised object discovery with the existence of SAM model? Because SAM model can give you the segmentation, the class agnostic segmentation, instant segmentation of on objects, on even the background object, the background of the class, right? So is there any the motivation? Why should we to do the unsupervised thing here? Yeah.
I think the difference between unsupervised discovery and segment anything is the difference between supervised learning and unsupervised learning. And so in segment anything, actually they use labels, and there's a significant annotation effort to produce labels for segment anything. And even though they show good results, I still see some limitation in segment anything. Like they, in many cases, when the scene is complicated, they fail to produce really mask for entire objects, and basically they produce mask for part of objects, for example. So there's still an ambiguities between objects and object parts. And also, I think we can combine unsupervised discovery and segment anything. Like as we're saying, unsupervised discovery can produce free but noisy but free source of annotation, and I think if we have a good method for unsupervised discovery, we can produce free labels for segment anything and improve the quality of math for segment anything.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. So yeah, any other question from the audience? Okay, yeah, I think if the audience have a question, they can reach you freely, right? Can you show us your email again, so everyone can write down, and if they have any question, they can contact you directly.
Yes, I think it's in my project page, or you can find the email here. But okay, so
you have website? Yeah, everyone just go to his website and find out
yes,
more information.
Yeah. That's my email.
Double V. No double V, right?
Yeah, there are 2 V.
Oh, yeah. Okay, 2 V. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I think. Yeah. The time is nearly almost ended. So yeah, thank you again for your very wonderful presentation. Give us a lot of insight about object discovery as well as how to use it with the most unsupervised learning method like Dino. Yeah, thank you again.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think goodbye. Yeah, bye bye.